Everyone, you're in for another episode of Rex Rocks. Rex Rocks Talks. So what's the topic? The topic is that I'm getting relatively, if not more than relativity, tired of derivative new characters. And when I say that, I specifically mean that one character will come out and then just gets famous and is loved. So the writers and the illustrators get together and say, how can we possibly exploit this character more? This is not a new thing. This has been going on for a long time. If you watch a lot of my videos, you'll see how I don't love Superman because he's the last son of Krypton. Oh, no, but wait. There's General Zod. There's Power Girl. There's Supergirl. There's other characters who come from Krypton. So he's not the last son of everything. He's the last son of a bitch of everything because he's overpowered. And it takes really good writers to make something good about Superman. And great artists as well, which I've discussed at great length before. So now we got Superman, who has Krypto also, a dog from Krypton who barks like a dog on Earth. And he hangs out in the Fortress of Solitude. Superman never comes by and pets the dog or anything because the dog will never die. The dog probably wishes that he would die because he lives in a ice refrigerator with robots and AI. And I don't even think that's fair for the poor dog. Because I never really hear about how Kara stops by there, or General Zod could just to pet the dog. Like, can't somebody give the dog some love? That's the depressing part. Now I'm going to move on to one that really bothers me. When I was about 5 years old, I searched out a poster of Wolverine. It was right above my bed, and nobody knew who Wolverine was. Not a single person, but I'm like, this guy's amazing. You will love Superman, you will love Wolverine. Both of those characters are titular because they manage to always grab a hold of people's minds and people's thoughts and their fascination. So Wolverine was great. What made Wolverine not so great? Well, he had some daughter which was born in a test tube by the Weapon X program. And unfortunately, she has 2 claws out of her hand, but she has 1 claw out of her foot. And she was not even named Laura. She was called X-23 until they gave her such a fascinating name. Laura! Why not just call her Jane? Or Jennifer. Or Susan. But no, they call her Lorna. No, Laura. Yeah. That is boring. But she's also a master martial artist. Although she's way too young, she's 21. I've seen her fight Wolverine, and the fact of the matter is that Wolverine could punch his whole fist through her chest and then just walk around like she's a bracelet. That's what Laura could do to Wolverine, but nope, not exactly. Now, who's another derivative character that you all know discussing Wolverine? Oh yeah, Daken. And supposedly, not that I've checked, but Daken is the word bitch in Japanese because he didn't have a father. The word bitch is not slang to a woman. The word bitch actually just means more or less a man who grew up without a father. That's the problem there because he didn't grow up with a father. But when he fights Daken can win sometimes. And then for some reason he starts wearing the Wolverine, I don't know, what's it called? Armor, spandex. You could call it whatever you want. So now we got 2 fake Wolverines just to bring on more lore. Worse than that, his name when he came out was that he didn't have a memory and he knew nothing about what was going on. And then I checked back 6 months later, and it's like, oh, his name's James Howlett, because wolves howl. So he's James now. James Howlett. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. I will never accept his name's James Howlett. Ooh, 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 I'm a wolf. No, you're not. You're a dude. And I can't remember where Logan came from, but it was way cooler and not knowing who he was than to call them James Howlett. Because that is just one more thing which I disdain that they've done. Additionally, they went from him having metal claws, which were infused on his body during the Weapon X treatment, and instead, he always had bone claws. Wolverine always had bone claws. Yeah. He didn't have bone claws. He never had bone claws. But they just retconned it like they do with everything, which makes things kind of nonsensical, and has no continuity, and I hate retcons because they ruin everything. That's why I've said before, what you need to do is erase all retcons and just stick what the truth is. Just do it like that. But of course I had to exploit Wolverine for more Wolverines, and then there was a whole thing with like his father, technically Romulus. Oh, and what is it, Wild Child or whatever. Now she's part of the wolf mutants. So now we have a certain group of wolf mutants. But that didn't exist until like 3 decades later. What the hell does that mean? So now he's part of like Sasquatch, who's magic. But now Sasquatch, I think they said, was also part of the Romulus group, and like I don't know, I think it's like Wild Child or whatever, and one character called Feral, I think, and now they're just this group of wolf-like mutations. No, it's not. That's just stupid and lazy writing. Can't stand it. I like Sasquatch being magical, and it makes more sense because you can't just go back in time and change everything. I mean, what? Now it's like Wolverine was actually born a woman. But he had the surgery and it didn't work well because they had to take off his wiener and flip it inside out or outside in. And now you get Wolverine as a male. See, that's how stupid retcon continues and goes on to continue. And who's my next one that I don't love at all? First off, I'm just going to make this real fast. They took Peter Parker and turned him into 4 clones. That was just lame. It was stupid. It went on for, 2 years? It should have lasted about 4 months. But they were trying to sell books, and I get that. That's fair. At the same time, it's fair for me to say that it wasn't for me. It was awful and confusing and annoying. Anyway, though, before that, he fought one amazing villain created by, David Michelini and Todd McFarlane. So one guy wrote it, he claims he created Venom, and one guy drew it, which is Todd McFarlane, and he claims that he created it. But the truth is that they both did. And they both did an amazing job. Venom's fantastic. If you love Spider-Man and Spider-Man lore, that whole thing with Eddie Brock, a bodybuilder who got fired from the, what was it called? Fired by James Jonah Jameson. Okay, so that's fine, and then he wanted to take it out, and somehow he got in touch with Venom, and Venom was terrifying. That was gripping story writing and art. It was so good. It was so well done. I loved it. I just loved the fact that they took Venom and really pushed it because Spidey sense could not detect Venom. So what can you really do when basically what you're supposed to do is be able to predict violence against you? Well, he couldn't do that with Venom. So that was fascinating. And I really, 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 really loved it. And then also, which I do approve of, is that they brought in Carnage, who was a spawn of Venom, except more ruthless. Cletus Cassidy was a serial killer who was in jail. He managed to get in touch with a spawn of Venom, and it took Spider-Man and Venom equal time at the same time to take out Cletus Cassidy, who's a human serial killer, and then also with the symbiote Carnage. So that was insanely gripping. I loved it. This is when things started to go a little bad. I was reading comics about how, I can't remember the guy's name, but he lost his legs, so then Venom became a symbiote for him so he could walk and be a very good military mercenary or fighter or whatever. Excuse me. Paid for by the U.S. military. That was really cool because it kind of makes sense. It's like you take a guy that can't walk but his mind works, put him with Venom, and then boom! That works out exceptionally well. That was great. But that was the end of greatness. I may have my time continuum a bit wrong, but don't you remember when Venom and spawns of Venom were like eggs falling from the sky, and there's one called like Scream, and there's one called this and that. There's like another now like 8 different versions of Venom babies. And the problem with that is that the more you dilute the core of a major character and a major character structure, you kind of lose why it matters. Because there's just way too many Venoms for Venom to fight himself, plus Cletus Cassidy. He was not even with Cletus now, I don't believe. So it really bothers me that they just water it down by saying, let's make 8 new Venoms. 8 new Venoms. Why? You know, milk the cow. And I really hate that about comics. It's because they get one great idea and water it down until it's trash. It's not even interesting. One of them, I think, called Scream or whatnot, screams so loud, and symbiotes supposedly hate loud bells and loud noises, and it makes them retreat and go all crazy and, and cry and run away. Except for Scream. Oh, and don't take my word for it being called Scream. I just remembered that there's one that screamed a lot. I didn't get involved with those at all because it's quite boring. Like once they get a good character, it's like they gotta squeeze it dry. Squeeze it for everything. Why don't they just take every existing character in Marvel, even ones I don't like, and then just be like, that's his brother. Things like this. The Fantastic Four were fantastic when it was 4. And then Sue Richards gives birth to Franklin Richards, who's the most powerful mutant of all time. Well, not a mutant because he got space powers or whatnot, or maybe he has both. I just couldn't read that trash because it didn't make any sense. So this guy is almost like Sentry. They always have to over push the boundaries of strength. They can't just have Franklin Richards is like a mix between Scarlet Witch before she got to her place now, where now she's overpowered, and Franklin Richards is overpowered. And what am I supposed to say about this? Everybody's OP. So what can you really do if all your characters are so OP that they actually can't even fight? Even Thanos was supposed to be OP, but then he has 2 humans, Captain America and Iron Man, trying to pull off his glove, and somehow they managed to pull off his glove. How can you possibly pull off a glove from Thanos who can travel from galaxy to dimension to a different galaxy and a new dimension. That doesn't even make any lick of a sense. It just goes on and on. And of course, you have Gore the God Killer, who's really not killing anything. And then you got Black Bolt, a man who can't talk, who's supposedly leading the Inhumans. I don't see how he can lead the Inhumans if he just can't even say to that big dog, hey, can you go fetch me a hot dog or something? Or like a drink, because my throat's sore because I never use it ever. The guy can't even talk at all. It makes no sense. It's just trash. Now we're going to talk to you more of this overboard characters that never should have existed. I'm going to keep on going. Hulk. Hulk, who was green, was awesome. When he was Mr. Fix-It, he was gray, but he could think more. Okay, fine. I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then they find ways to make him green, but he can also think. It's like, okay, fine, that makes sense. But then there's She-Hulk, who can choose between being a Hulk or not, but she's so just as super powered as the Hulk. I don't know how that works, because the Hulk because he's the world breaker. And if you're watching this, you know there is a Hulk comic book called Hulk World Breaker. So does that mean that She-Hulk could also break a world in half? We know that she can't. So no, she's not equal. And she is pointless, but she's a lawyer, and I guess you have to have some girl characters. And I'm just going to say, not like women even really read comics en masse. I read comics en masse. Most women don't. I've had a few girlfriends. They don't know a damn thing about comics or Marvel versus a DC or a Valiant or a Dark Horse. So, I don't know who they're trying to please there, but it's really weak. I have 2 versions of She-Hulk. Number 1. One from, I swear, it's 1988. One was from, 1992. Not fascinating, and who cares? And they also tend to use her sexual allure to, make people want to buy it because the cover looks good. Which is sad when men are so obsessed with a woman cartoon that they've got to buy the comic just to see what she looks like and how she acts in the comic, which is boring. It's terrible. It's just trash. So I gotta say that there. Then Hulk goes to the planet Sakaar. I think I'm right there. And he finds out too at some point along that run, he has Scar, Skaar, Scar. And he's super strong too. But he's not a world breaker. I like Korg. They should have just kept Korg. Korg was a cool character, and he's great during the whole thing. But Scar, as a character, all of this is a second grade Hulk, with one problem he has. His big tattoos. Do you know that if you actually had a tattoo and you were Hulk, how would you put that in the skin? Was there a heavy-duty alien machine shop laser thing to explain how the man, Sakaar, can actually have tattoos? I don't know how the guy can have tattoos. That doesn't even make any sense there. But then things get worse. Much worse. Wait for it. Red Hulk. Who is also really hot because he burns things because he's on fire all of the time. And who is the guy that played him? General Ross. General Ross is now a Hulk also. Although for 70 years he wasn't, and now somehow he turns into a Hulk that's made of fire, and they can't seem to identify, is this General Ross as strong as Hulk, or are they equal, or is Hulk the actual world smasher? Because I believe that he should be the strongest. In fact, I go as far to say is that the only somewhat human being that could stop Hulk would be... What was that I was going to say there? Thor. Because Thor's a god. We have no idea how long Thor's been around for, but it's got to be like 5,000 years to 10,000 years to before there was even gods. That's why he's so relaxed, because the guy's like, I'll just beat this thing to death. Whatever, you know, but not really mean to death, but I'm sure he's killed before. You know, frost giants, because he's got to kill the frost giants. So now we have all of these random other Hulks. Why are they making so many derivative characters? I don't love that, and it's not cool. It's kind of pointless. That's like asking a guy to build your house, but don't put the windows in. And then, when the guy leaves, you put the windows in, and then you say, I built that house. Don't you like the windows? No, because you didn't build anything. You kind of showed up last minute, and that's it. And I can't see how anybody would think like, wow, yeah, that's really cool. Like, things have gotten so freaking ridiculous. It's kind of like this. Storm has a sister who's a lesbian called Ice Storm. And she's white. Why is she white? Because she's of mixed race. Or a daughter named Ice Storm. But she can't control thunder, but she's much better at controlling water and pine cones and whatnot. I haven't a clue. Professor X needs to have a dad who comes from a different dimension. And his dad is not called Professor X. No, because he came before retcon. Retcon here. This is my retcon here. Dr. X. And then when he sees his father, he starts to weep because he saw him die when he was young, but he didn't die. All he did was wipe Professor X's brain. So now Professor X has a father. But he manages to get a girl pregnant also, and his child pops out of Scarlet Witch. And the name is the child between Scarlet Witch, who's way too old to sleep with Professor X, or Dr. X, is... Ready? This is a game changer. Nobody watching this will ever fully understand this amazing. Called the Firmament. Yeah. He controls planet Earth. So the child between Professor X, who's like 75, and Scarlet Witch, who's like 30, somehow they got to hook it up. Oh yeah, hook it up. And they have a baby called the Firmament, but it ages super fast. So by the time 1 month is done, he or she, because we don't know, is called the Firmament. Because the Firmament takes on like all of like the power of like telekinesis and telecomorphosis and morphokinesis and who knows, but controls the entire planet's temperature and rain, and can move the earth, keep certain parts extra hot. Who knows? But I think I'm a genius. Professor X, who's 75, has sex and has a baby with Scarlet Witch, and it's called the Firmament. Ooh. That's a hard hitter right there, baby. That's a hard hitter right there. You know what I mean? Because imagine that. Or like, let's take like Magneto sleeps with Iceman. Yes, I'm going there. So what happens is that Magneto does a little bum with Iceman, and somehow, because this is a different dimension, when Magneto has sex with Ice Girl, yes, Ice Girl, much better. So Magneto has sex with Ice Girl, which is Iceman's sister, and then what happens is that they can now control frozen metal. I'm sure Magneto can control frozen metal already, but you gotta, like drop some like hints about like what the power is, or like frozen stuff or anything like that. I don't know. I mean, just like, I'm so disappointed with the fact that it's like, what was it called? X-Men Classic Annual 1, where they first came out, and I think Chris Claremont was writing it. And what's the guy that wrote it? I can't remember. Anyway, it was all brand new characters. All brand new characters. There wasn't a Colossus or a Nightcrawler or, I don't know, Dazzler or Wolverine. Like, they actually made characters. Now they just don't even make characters. They're just being real lazy. And it's quite boring. I mean, I have no idea how... Here we go. Almost the last one. It starts with a D, ends with a P. Deadpool. We literally have a catalog of different pools. The only one they haven't met that I want them to make is the god of all the Deadpools, because they need a leader who's a bad guy, who's a good guy. And they would call him, wait for it, Pool. So Pool would be in charge of all the pools, like Dog Pool and Head Pool and Girl Pool and Deadpool also again, a different version of him. That would be awesome, because if you're gonna put it all out, put all your laundry to dry, you might as well just make a pool who's in control of all the pools. Like Nice Pool. Nice Pool was cool. I actually heard a rumor that he didn't actually die. He just didn't know that he had it because... Sorry. He didn't know that he had the healing factor because he was just nice and he avoided fights. But even though he dies in the movie, Pool is fine. No, sorry. I made that up. Nice Pool is actually alive, which would be great. But when it comes to exploiting one character way too fast, Deadpool is a prolific example of what happens when you just go with everything all the time. What happened to superheroes being special and having like specific personalities, skills and traits, specific weaknesses? Like, that's a bit of a problem. Even if we go back to Wolverine, when Wolverine first came out, he did have healing factor. The difference was, it was kind of mild. So, like, if he got, I don't know, stabbed by a Japanese sword, what would happen to him is that he would probably want to leave so he can lay down and heal. But now he can literally be filleted with 1,000 flamethrowers and be burnt to death till he's just a carcass, and he can grow back. Okay, see, like, that's just going too far with things. You know what I mean? Like, oh, and also, as much as I do love Wolverine, no, he's not that great. He's nowhere near as powerful as they're trying to make him. He's actually kind of lame. He has claws that pop out and he can heal fast. Now, if you want to look at who's really powerful, Galactus, Silver Surfer, both of them easily could just erase him, pick him up, raise him up into the sun, burn every piece of protein, muscles, fat off of his body, and then just shut him down. And then that's how powerful Wolverine isn't. And Gore the God Butcher should be able to easily erase Wolverine, along with Thanos, along with tons of characters. I actually read this one thing talking about how Colossus could beat Wolverine because his natural metal armor also heals itself. So he can rebuild his own body just like Wolverine. But the thing is, Wolverine would not have enough shots to constantly punch at that part of his body. So Colossus could pick him up, rip off all of his legs, and then just whip them. Miles away. That's how powerful Wolverine is. He's awesome. I had the poster. I got endless Wolverine comics. I have a lot to say about him. Unfortunately, Wolverine's just not that powerful. Let me just try to close this up really fast here to discuss what other characters have been exploited for money, but it probably wasn't worth it. I did. Hold on a second. Everybody from Asgard, Loki's used as a person who can manipulate his body and image, and he can use illusions. But he's also been around for at least 5,000 years. I'm pretty sure that Loki can fight quite well. I'm sure that he is combative, and I'm sure that he can lay a smackdown. Plus his tricks as well. I also really hate how when they have characters like Cyclops, they never discuss if Cyclops has healing factor. Because the fact of the matter is that if Cyclops didn't have healing factor, he'd be dead. Because shooting optic blasts does not make your body strong. And nobody's ever written it so that every single mutant has at least a 80% healing factor so they can go into war. Because how can you go into war against, I'm just going to say it again, Thanos, who can snap his fingers and eradicate civilizations? Cyclops should be more or less, if you ask me, part of the Spider-Man books. Because Spider-Man does have healing factor, but he fights guys like Doc Ock, Hobgoblin, much less, not high-level guys, just lower-level stuff. Because what could Cyclops do if Hulk snapped on him? Nothing. He'd die because he doesn't have healing factor. They should make sure that all these characters have healing factor. All mutants should be born with it. Or be like Juggernaut, which runs from, what is that Julie has? The Cytrelic jewel, whatever like that. So that gives him his power. Cyclops does not have that. Havoc does not have that. Even let's take Storm. They never see her getting giant gashes and her just saying, "Oh, don't worry, I'll heal." Nobody says that actually. Jubilee. How's Jubilee gonna fight anybody? First off, she has no power. Dazzler. How's Dazzler gonna fight anybody? She has no power. Cloak and Dagger are two middle ground ones that could have inside of them healing factor. That's not too strange. So I do believe that that's completely possible. Who else is there? It's like a Colossus. The guy's built with armor. Professor X is in a freaking wheelchair. All the guy can do is wipe minds. So he should be wearing armor if he was to go into battle. Although I don't think I've ever seen him in battle. Not one time. Rogue does have extra strength and And it's shown that she does have kind of like a healing factor type thing, which goes on there. Even Beast. Beast is really, really strong. But the problem with Beast being strong is that doesn't really work out if a person launches at 100 miles per hour a spear into your forehead. You're dead, Beast, unless you have healing factor. I just want Marvel to come up with a concept saying every mutant has healing factor. Wolverine has more, Deadpool has more. But then there's people like Scott Summers, Havoc, his brother. Give them healing factor, which would make sense that they could go to war. Because there are people like Vision. Vision's terrifying. Because he's a cyborg. Or he's just a robot. Or whatever. Then let's take Sentry. Sentry is basically Marvel's version of Superman. But we also have Thor. They should make a series just called Thor vs. Sentry. Because Sentry, as we all know, is his own worst enemy. Because deep inside of his brain, there's something wrong. And that's why Sentry is fascinating. Because there's a darkness in him that he fights. Nightcrawler clearly has something going on because the guy can teleport. His father, Azazel, that guy has the same thing. It just makes sense. But what happened if Cyclops had to fight Sentry? Nothing? Because the guy can't do anything. It's like, I'll shoot you by pressing my forehead side face thing. Meh. Pointless, useless, and doesn't even mean a thing. It's just pointless. Like, the Blob. The Blob is pretty fantastic also. It just makes sense. He's like super disfiguredly giant, and I've seen him fight Juggernaut, who I also love. I still think that Hulk, based on the lore of X-Men, would be able to destroy Juggernaut and the Blob. I'm not even sure how in the movie called Wolverine Origins, how is it that Wolverine defeats the Blob? Because the Blob can wipe him out, I'm quite sure. Like, he must have a lot of healing factor as well. Plus body fat that's so big that the claws wouldn't even work. So I can't see that working out. So before I wrap this up, I just want to see if there's any more major grievances that I have with these new characters, which they make by repurposing an old character. Let's see if I can find one, because I do not... Well, okay, of course, Batman, and then Dick Grayson, who at times takes the mantle of Batman. The guy has like 4 Robins, including his Tim Drake, which was just like a psycho bastard who gets blown up by the Joker. And then there's Damian, too, who's just like a nut job because he was actually raised by the Ra's al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul. You can pronounce it the way you want. I don't mind. But you have that, and then you have Batgirl. I think there's even a Batwoman. And there's Failsafe. Failsafe is an android created by Bruce Wayne to monitor him, which was encouraged by Dick Grayson because the Dark Knight is getting too dark. He's going to end up killing somebody, and Batman does not want that at all either. But then Amanda Waller somehow gets in touch with Failsafe, and now Batman and Dick Grayson, Nightwing, they gotta take Failsafe down. That's just like a must-have, because you can't have that. He's too powerful, and he has access to all the finances, all the colleagues, I'm sure on the phone he can imitate voices, I guess is like the best way to say it. He can adjust his voice to sound like Bruce Wayne, to sign in with his fingerprints, to do a lot of stuff. So even Batman has been like kind of like sold out by having just like more editions of Batman that was even necessary. The only version that I really liked, which most people hate, hey, do you remember when Jim Lee did Batman All-Star? When Jim Lee did Batman All-Star, I don't know if he wrote it or if he just drew it, but I'm sure the guy was on point, because it shows how at the start Batman got Dick Grayson, and Dick Grayson's like, yay, I got Batman that's gonna help me out. That didn't happen at all. Batman left him in the Batcave, and also just a cave, and turned off all the lights, and Dick Grayson had to, it might have been Damian. Anyway, who cares? It was either Dick Grayson or Damian had to eat like dead rats alive, just so they don't die. So like he gave them like the crash course on pain and hatred, which would not have a good result, because if you're ever left in a cage in pitch black and you gotta like eat dead rats and capture alive rats, that's not gonna work out too well. That's just gonna be creepy. So that's the kind of stuff that went through with Batman when they look at different versions of Batman. You know, sometimes he's more vicious, sometimes he's not vicious, and sometimes Dick Grayson is Batman. Who else have I left out in DC and Marvel that have done this whole like nonsense where they're basically just like repurposing a character by making it a girl, or repurposing a character to make them a different ethnicity? I'm sure there's more, so if you think of any and you've watched it this far, please let me know. I don't have all my facts like on paper and stuff. I just talk off the cuff because I love this stuff and I've loved it forever, you know? But like, what would you think if DC was just like, because right now they're ramping up on Penguin? Yeah, we're gonna have young Penguin and Penguin Girl, and like the father of the Penguin, just like the Court of Owls. The Court of Owls, I don't know. I thought it was alright. But what can you do there? You know what I mean? Like, okay, so now we got a bunch of penguins, or one penguin in a wheelchair, or one penguin that's a centaur, you know? It's like a body of a penguin, but it's the head of a human. That does not sound too strange, strictly because that's what they did with Deadpool. Grab a pony. What do we call him? Pony pool. Sure. Let's grab a penguin. What do we call it? Penguin pool. Grab a pool ball. Pool. That's the thing. It's like people need to come up with original ideas, because what they're doing right now is making things rather reoccurring by ripping off ideas. And how do they pick who gets big? Well, first off, they gotta find a famous one. Next one is this. I'm actually shocked, but this is true. Captain America now has been played by Bucky Barnes, so Captain America was also Bucky Barnes. And then what's that dude that plays Falcon? That guy is now the new Captain America Shield, but he is also an Iron Man. So that dude is both Iron Man with Captain America Shield. That's just nonsense. Just like make a new character up. You know what I mean? Oh, Iron Man is the worst for this. Everything from that old dude, what's his name, Briggs or Barnes or something, whatever, that dude who was like old with like the beard. What was his name? It was like Ozekia, something like that. Whatever. That guy had an Iron Man costume, just bigger. Then also, Whiplash had chunks of the Iron Man armor also. And there's even, and Gwyneth Paltrow is also an Iron Woman. So, like, what they're doing is, like, making it pretty murky and thin about, like, who's Iron Man. I could do without all of these remakes and just start from scratch. That would be fantastic. Just make a new character, because now it's like there's like five versions of Iron Man. Also, now the guy can walk around in jeans and press a button, and then, much like the Matt Fraction run of Iron Man, like he can just like press a button, and then it's called nanotech, and his whole body goes. And the Matt Fraction run of Iron Man was pretty awesome. I really like that one a lot. So I think that's about that's what I got to say about the whole thing, where they're like recycling and reinterpreting and repaleting like existing characters, because it's just easier than making up a new one, much like Marvel Comics Giant Sized One that illustrated from scratch Wolverine to Colossus to Nightcrawler to Kitty Pryde, Banshee, the whole thing. That was amazing. We need to bring back guys like Chris Claremont, because that guy really runs the show. And and he did run it for 12 years? 12 years, I think. Anyway, hit me up. Let me know what you think. If you hate it, let me know and why. And if you like it or just want to make a comment, that'd be fantastic. So, once again, this is Rex Rocks. Rex Rocks out. Please like, comment, and subscribe.